Welcome in hour number 2 of Fitz the Bill on this Wednesday, August 13th morning. It is Richmond Race Week. Appreciate you clocking in, getting your day started with us. I'm Jack Fitzpatrick, Allen alongside, here from the Bull Rush Studios in the capital of the Commonwealth. And we are joined now by Chase Briscoe as he's getting ready for the Richmond race this weekend. Chase, thank you so much for taking some time out of your morning to chat with us about the upcoming race and the final 2 races of the regular season in the Cup Series.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to getting up there this weekend. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Saturday night racing at Richmond. Can you kind of walk us through what makes night racing at Richmond, but just kind of in general, so special, especially at a short track?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like, just Saturday night under the lights, that's just how it should be at Richmond. As a kid, I remember just always watching it there. And, yeah, just the atmosphere and the electricity is just different, I feel like, at night, especially just short track racing. There's just a different element and feel to it. The crowd just seems to be a little more into it for whatever reason, and just the excitement level's up, and it just feels like one of those, prime time events just because you are racing under the lights. So, yeah, definitely, excited to get up there this weekend, and sounds like it's going to be a massive crowd there too, which is really, really cool. So, yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Racing at night, the track is a little bit different, and, the sparks are flying. Like, just the visuals and everything is just different, I feel like, at a night race. So, yeah, definitely should be an awesome one, and looking forward to it.
Chase Briscoe, driver of the number 19 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, joining us on this Wednesday morning. You kind of hit on it where night racing brings out a different side of the track that you might not necessarily get when it's a hot August afternoon. How does the coolness of night racing impact the track itself and impact your racing style on the track?
Yeah, the temperature is important everywhere we go, just from a track grip standpoint, but Richmond is probably one of the most sensitive places that we go, just from a temperature standpoint. The cooler that is outside, typically the more grip the racetrack has, and Richmond has just a massive swing, in lap time and grip. If we were to go there on Friday and, practice kind of in the middle of the day and then go race the next day at night, lap times would be probably almost a half second different just because of how much more grip the racetrack has at night. So that changes the lanes a little bit, makes it a little bit more difficult sometimes to make passes and things just because everybody's car drives a little bit different and or a little bit better, and that's typically where you see guys start using the bumper more and things like that. So, yeah, I just feel like, especially at Richmond, just the nighttime racing just it's better overall experience for all of us. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to it, and it should be really good.
I'm always interested because short track racing kind of is different than every other track. Every track brings its own kind of style of racing. Where does short track racing rank among your favorite styles?
Yeah, it's definitely up there. It honestly comes down to, for me at least, my car. I don't really have a preference of one way or the other. They're all fun if your car's fast. So, yeah, I definitely think that, for us this weekend, Richmond for Joe Gibbs Racing especially has been a great place. For myself personally, it's not been the greatest place. So, yeah, I'm excited, this weekend just to see finally what a Joe Gibbs racing car drives like around there. I've obviously raced against them my entire career and seen the speed they have, and just excited to kind of see where that's at. Like I said, Richmond's not been my favorite racetrack because it's been a huge struggle, but I feel like, hopefully after this weekend with, the performance difference, it'll quickly turn into one of my favorites and even one of my favorite short tracks. So, yeah, I've always enjoyed short track racing. Just you're always around somebody. When you go to some of these mile-and-a-half racetracks, there's times of the race where you almost feel like you're by yourself out there just because you're not really racing around anybody, where at a short track, especially Richmond, this weekend, there's not going to be a lap in the race where I'm not around somebody or racing somebody. So it's just a lot of fun from the driver's side.
Chase Briscoe, driver of the number 19 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, joining us on this Wednesday morning. Chase, you mentioned it where Richmond has been a bit of a problem for you. 8 starts, no top 10s. What has it been about this track that hasn't lent itself to success for you?
I don't know. I've just honestly kind of felt like a fish out of water every time I go there. It's just been a track where, just, I don't know if it's my driving style or my technique just doesn't really match what the racetrack needs or something. But yeah, it's definitely been a place that's been a massive struggle for me just from a performance standpoint. Just, there's other tracks I feel like I've made, gains on that I wasn't necessarily good at. In Richmond, I feel like I've definitely made some gains compared to when I started going there, but still have a long way to go. So yeah, hopefully this week, I can make bigger gains. Like I said, being in a different race car with Joe Gibbs Racing, I think is going to be a really big difference. But I still have to do my job, inside the car with the pedals and everything with the wheel and just the technique that it takes to go around Richmond. And been doing a lot of work on the simulator, all throughout the week, and even last week. I'm actually headed there now to do another 4 hours on the simulator, just trying to be as best prepared as I can for this weekend.
What does simulator work look like? Is it like a really souped up video game where you're like in a fake car where you're feeling everything?
Yeah, there's kind of different types. So we have two for us. We have one that kind of like a static is what we call it, where it doesn't move. It's almost just like a, not a desk, but it's like a, almost like a gaming chair with a steering wheel and, 3 monitors around you. And that one does not move, but it still gives you a really good idea of kind of what your car is going to do. And then we have another one that's actually like a full-blown car you sit in. The whole thing's moving the whole time. The screen wraps literally all the way around the car. We have tens of millions invested in the simulators, so they're a huge tool for us. Now with kind of how we've been after COVID, we only get 20 minutes of practice every single week. So for us, at the racetrack, you don't really get a lot of laps. And even when you're there, you're kind of limited on what you can do with the setups. The simulators turn into this massive tool that every team uses. And, having a good simulator program and being able to show up to the racetrack every single weekend and be prepared and, have a general idea of what the car is going to drive like and even a setup, it's a huge difference in our performance every week.
Chase Briscoe, driver, the number 19 Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota, joining us on this Wednesday morning. Chase, these last couple of weeks, you've been on a pretty impressive hot streak. Over the last 5 weeks, 4 top fives, 3 second-place finishes. Has something clicked over the last month or so in that car that has gotten you to the front? What has clicked there for you?
Yeah, I think, a lot of things, really the first part of the season, coming to a new team and a new organization, it took me a little bit of time to even have an understanding of how to drive their cars. Their setups are different. The feel of the race car was totally different. And even the capability and performance was just so much greater than what I was used to in my career that it was kind of a struggle just trying to realize that I could drive the car as hard as they allow you to drive them. And then I would say around the end of May, kind of around Coke 600, it kind of just slowly started to click with me, and I felt like the results started coming more and more often. And then we were able to win. Ever since then, we've just been on this great streak of runs of being consistently one of the best cars and battling up front and being in the mix to win these races. And it's definitely been, a lot of fun. And feel like as a race team, we still have a lot we can do better. I would say that all of us agree that we're not even close to what we feel like our match is. So that's really encouraging that we've been able to be, as strong as we have. Only, I think this is race 24 of the year or something like that. And this is only our 24th race even working together. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But, yeah, this last month and a half has really been really good for our race team. And hopefully we can just continue that on. We have 2 weeks to the playoffs, and then the playoffs start, and that's when you really want to be running good. So hopefully we can just continue this on.
Chase Briscoe joining us. And Chase, you've mentioned it a couple times where this is your first year with JGR after you spent a couple of seasons with Stewart-Haas Racing. You took over for Martin Truex Jr. in that number 19. What has that process been like, taking over for a driver like Martin Truex Jr. in his number 19 car? Now you're making it your own. You found that success. What has that process been like from the start of the season to now?
Yeah, it's always tough. Anytime you take over, for a guy, especially, Martin's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but just in general, a guy that, had success and one of the fan favorites. I've been fortunate to take over for Martin. But even at Stewart Haas, taking over for Clint, Clint was another guy that is just extremely well liked. So, the fan base, whenever you come in, they have these expectations of what you should be. And I think for me, it's been, honestly, a lot of fun to get over to JGR and kind of doing my own thing and, having a lot of fans kind of convert over. It seems like every single weekend I've had people come up to me and tell me they were lifelong Martin fans and they've decided to stick around and see how it is. So, yeah, it's been good. And just from a pressure standpoint, going over to JGR has definitely been different. Just the expectation is to win every single weekend. And, truthfully, at Stewart Haas, that wasn't necessarily the expectation every week. So just having that mindset difference, it has taken me, I would say, the first couple, months or into the season just to realize the culture change. It was just a very eye-opening experience going from, Stewart Haas, where we wanted to win, but we knew realistically our chances of winning a lot of the time wasn't really there to now going to Joe Gibbs Racing, where the expectation is to win and to win by as much as possible every single week. And that did take a little bit of time to get acclimated to after being at a different culture for so long. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun now that I kind of got used to it and kind of understand the environment.
So has Martin Truex Jr. shared any pointers with you for Richmond this weekend? Because in his career, I think he led over 1,500 laps at this track. Has he given you a call and given you any pointers for how to attack it maybe a little differently in your number 19 Toyota?
No, I actually haven't talked to Martin. He's off fishing, I think, every single day. That guy is hard to get a hold of. But definitely, my race team, is still the same team that Martin had from the crew chief all the way down. So they have a really good understanding of kind of setup-wise what to do, but even just from a driving style and technique. I was talking earlier how I'm going to the simulator and trying to learn techniques, do different things, and that's really all I've done this past week is watch Martin Truex data and videos and trying to just replicate as much as I can of his driving style, because certainly what he's done there has been really, really successful. So, yeah, hopefully I can do it right because, like you said, he's had a ton of success there, and what he does there has always kind of worked, and certainly from a setup standpoint and how he drives it works. So we'll try to replicate him the best I can this week.
Chase, thank you so much for your time today. We look forward to seeing how you perform at Richmond on Saturday night under the lights. Good luck this weekend and have fun in the simulator.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.